Welcome back. Today we're going to cover 3 chess hacks that you can start applying to your games immediately to help you improve your rating. My name is Philip and I'm a 2100 FIDE rated player from New Zealand, and I make these videos to help you improve your chess. So let's get right into it. The 3 chess hacks we're going to talk about today are: number 1, castling early and getting your king to safety. Number 2, what I call the 70-20 rule, which is you want to have 70% of your time remaining on the clock by move 20. And number 3, play the same opening over and over and over again. So let's start with number 1, king safety and getting your king castled early. King safety is one of the most important concepts in chess. If you have a very open king, very unsafe king, you're just opening yourself up for trouble. And as you get more advanced, as you go through your chess journey, you realize that to be more and more true. So let's take a look at this example. This is a Queen's Gambit declined, and White is not sensing any danger, so they've played Rook to C1 and H3 instead of playing E3 and Bishop to D3 to get their king castled. So White is making the mistake of not getting their king to safety early. Let's see how Black punishes White. So it's White to play. White decides to play E3 in this position, naturally trying to move the bishop to D3. But Black responds with knight to E4. And you can kind of see instantly there's a little bit of annoying pressure on this pin here on the queen side. However, you'll see how quickly it can escalate for White. So White's best move is actually to take the D pawn here. And after the trades here, White has had to give up a pawn essentially to alleviate some of the pressure, but it doesn't really help because now White's only got 2 real moves really. King E2, which is quite ugly, and knight to D2. After knight D2, Black simply takes the pawn back, and here White again wants to just get their king castled, but this is how dangerous it can be. So bishop to D3. You kind of realize that on the next move, it's very hard for White to castle because the king is actually guarding that knight. So Black takes advantage of that by playing knight to D6 or B6. White plays Rook to C2, adding an extra defender to the knight. Knight to C4, attacking that pinned piece, and after the bishop takes, the D pawn takes back. Black wins the tempo because that bishop is now under attack from the queen. The bishop drops back, and after bishop to F5, Black is going to win material and win the game. If not taking the rook, then taking the knight, or bishop to D3 is coming, and then again White can't castle. So this is a position where White's whole game has just fallen apart because they didn't get their king castled to safety quick enough, and Black has just stormed and attacked. You could also say, well, Black hasn't castled either. The thing is, Black isn't under any pressure in this case, in this particular situation, and Black can, on the very next move, castle, and their king will be completely safe. Now, there are a couple of exceptions. I just want to point them out. So, in the Sicilian defense and in the French defense, there are situations where White launches an early pawn storm quite quickly with moves like F4 and G4, and in this case, in the Sicilian, with a queenside castle. Now, if Black were to castle on this move, it'll be quite dangerous because after something like bishop to H4, White is just going to play G5, F5 on some moves are coming in, Rook G1, Bishop D3, and Black is actually castled into the attack. So the exceptions to the castling rule are you want to just watch out that you're not going to walk into an attack. So as Black in the Sicilian, that's one way. And also as Black in the French defense, in a closed French defense where the pawn structure is locked up like this, if White starts throwing pawns early on forward towards the king, towards the king side, you might want to just double check if you're going to castle, you're not castling into a mating attack. So those are the exceptions. Okay, so let's look at chess hack number 2, and this is my personal favorite, because I actually make this mistake quite a lot, even though I'm 2100 rating. You want to manage your time well. That's the punchline to this one. And the best way to manage your time well is to have the rule in mind where In the first 20 moves, you only want to use about 30% of your time and have 70% of your time remaining. We'll just go and show you this game. This is a game between Fischer as white, Bobby Fischer as white, and Bent Larsen as black. Now, the first 9 moves have taken place, and you can see we've just played a Dragon Sicilian. The players have played a Dragon Sicilian, and then after a few moves, the players just continue playing natural-looking moves in what I'd call the early middle game. The early middle game, about moves 10 to 20. So you've got the opening, the early middle game, and then the late middle game begins sort of move 20 onwards. What is special about the late middle game is that's when all the tactics happen. And when all the tactics happen, you need to have time on your clock to be able to calculate and find the right moves, because that's where it gets tricky. That's where if you've got a better position, you don't want to lose or draw. And if you've got a equal position, you don't want to end up losing the game because you've used up too much time on your first 20 moves. The first 20 moves, you can, it does take a lot of skill to play them, of course, but you can typically rattle them off, and they're very natural looking moves. So in this case, let's see how the game continued. So Fischer is white. Fischer plays h4, h5, very standard Dragon Sicilian type stuff. Bent Larsen is black, doubles rooks on the c-file, and after h takes g, g4, a5, both players have played 20 moves. And this is when the fireworks begin. So you have to have time on the clock. So let's say you're playing a 10-minute game online. You want to have only spent about 3 minutes up to this point, because the next 7 minutes are going to be needed to calculate. So look what happens. G5, knight to h5, and Fischer immediately sacrifices the exchange, ripping open black's kingside. But a lot of calculation is required for this. This is a very tactical game. Now the moves are less so natural and more so tactical. And more so you've got to just have brute calculation to figure out the best moves. So d6, the rook comes to f6, the bishop attacks it, queen b7, and in a couple moves, Fischer plays queen to d6, and it's mate in 6, so Bent Larsen resigned and white won the game. But you can kind of see how from moves 20 to this is move 31, in that space of 11 moves, it was very, very tactical, and before that, it was just the opening and natural middle game progression. So that's why if you can just manage your time better by following the 70-20 rule, you will win more games and your chess rating will improve. Now, number 3, chess hack number 3 is play the same opening over and over. I'll give you a practical example of why this works and how it works. So what you want to do is you want to give yourself a rule, like if my opponent plays d4, I'm going to always play the Nimzo Indian defense, or whichever opening you want to choose as black. Likewise, if your opponent plays first move e4, you want to say, okay, I'm always going to play the French defense or the Sicilian or e5 or whatever. The reason this is good, and this is going to help you improve your chess rating and your chess game overall, is because you're going to start getting very, very familiar with very similar looking positions. Now, especially when you're starting out in chess, you don't want to be memorizing moves in the opening. You want to be memorizing patterns. So what you'll find in these types of, let's just say, Nimzo Indian defense situations, white is typically always going to play something like e3 or maybe f3 to e4. White's going to play a queen to c2, knight f3, etc. And black is going to have a couple of different pawn structures that they choose to play. They might play d6 followed by c5, or they might play d5 and c5, opening up the center, turning it into more of a Queen's Gambit declined type position. But the punchline is, the more you play the same types of openings, it doesn't matter so much the exact moves, it's the types of positions that arise. You're going to start seeing the same patterns repeat over and over and over. And what that means is when you play the 10th move, the 10th game or the 20th game, or the 30th game with the same opening, you're going to start seeing those patterns repeat. And you're going to therefore play better moves than your opponent, because you're going to have seen this type of thing happen before. You're going to say, actually, I know that this is what I should be playing in this type of a position, or I know that my opponent shouldn't have played that because the other thing that they should have played was better, etc., etc. And you're going to just win more games, your rating is going to improve, and that's how you essentially get better at chess. You play similar positions over and over until you get really good at them, and then you know the nuances. Like, I'll just give you one example. Here, bishop to b4, let's say knight f3. You might decide, I actually kind of like Dutch type openings, so I'm going to play f5 in the Nimzo Indian. And with f5, I know that later on I'm going to play b6, bishop to b7, and really lock down the defense and pressure on that e4 square and just the control of that e4 square. I'm going to castle, and I'm going to start playing that type of a game, maybe d6, knight b to d7, etc. If you play that 10 times, that kind of a structure, that kind of a system, you're just going to be so familiar with it that it's going to be very hard for you to lose a game against someone who's typically similar strength to you. Now, obviously, if you play someone 500 ELO rated higher than you, they're going to have a much deeper understanding of chess, full stop. They're going to be able to calculate better. You'll probably lose that game. But if you're playing against similar opposition, plus minus 100 ELO, you're just going to get the better of them over and over and over because you've got the experience. So anyway, those are the 3 chess hacks I'd recommend for anyone to help them improve their rating immediately, pretty much. I hope you guys enjoyed those tips. There's going to be a couple of videos that pop up on your screen, recommendations from YouTube. Click on one of them to continue learning about chess, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.